Presenting the magical story of Cinderella. Once upon a time, long before you or I were born, lived a beautiful girl named Cinderella. And Cinderella lived with her stepsisters who, as you can see, loved to dress in fancy clothes, while Cinderella had to wear rags, which meant that when there was work to be done, those stepsisters couldn't help. Cinderella had to do it all herself. Well, one day, as Cinderella was busy with her work, and her stepsisters were busy admiring each other's clothes, there was a sound at the door of the house where they lived. It was sort of a knocking sound. It was an invitation. The prince was having a ball, and they were all invited. Well, they were very excited about this, but when the time came to go to the ball, the stepsisters said, "Oh, Cinderella, you can't go. You're in rags." And they took the invitation, went out the door, and left Cinderella there all by herself. Now, Cinderella was sad, so sad that she began to cry, when suddenly there was a puff of smoke. And when the smoke cleared, it was her fairy godmother, who said, "Don't cry, Cinderella, I'm here to help you. Wait right here." Now, the fairy godmother hurried away. It looked like she was heading in the direction of the garden. And when she came back, she had something with her. It was a pumpkin. And the fairy godmother took that pumpkin, waved her magic wand, and it became a carriage. Now, Cinderella was very surprised, but the fairy godmother said, "Oh, I'm not done. Wait here, Cinderella." And she hurried off again. This time, it looked like she was heading in the direction of the stables. And when she came back, she had something with her. 4 little white mice. And the fairy godmother took those mice, waved her magic wand, and they became 4 fine horses. Once again, the fairy godmother hurried away. This time it looked like she was headed in the direction of the woods around Cinderella's house. And when she came back, she had something with her. 2 fat rats. And she took those rats, waved her magic wand, and they became 2 handsome coachmen. Now the fairy godmother said, "Cinderella, come closer." Cinderella did. Very important. All of this magic wears off at midnight, so you must keep a careful watch of the time. Cinderella said she would, and with that, she was dressed in a beautiful ball gown, and the fairy godmother disappeared as quickly as she'd come. Well, Cinderella began to make her journey to the palace. And right away, when she arrived, the prince noticed her, and he asked her to dance. It was 8 o'clock when they began to dance. At 9 o'clock, they were still dancing. At 10 o'clock, they were still dancing. At 11 o'clock, they were still dancing while midnight came. Cinderella had forgotten the words of her fairy godmother. And sure enough, the carriage back to being a pumpkin. The 4 fine horses, nothing but 4 little white mice. And the handsome coachman, 2 fat rats that went scurrying off into the woods. Suddenly, Cinderella realized what was happening, and she hurried away from the prince as quickly as she could, moving so fast she dropped something just moments before turning back to wearing rags. The prince looked to see what she had dropped. It was a tiny slipper made of glass. And the prince was glad because he knew that since it was made of glass, it could only fit 1 person. So he called a servant, told him to take the little slipper and search the entire kingdom until he found the girl who fit that shoe. Well, the servant took the slipper, and the search was on. He looked high and low and far and wide until he came to a place that we have seen before. Now, 3 months had passed while the servant was looking, but the day came when he knocked on the door of Cinderella's house, and the door was answered by her stepsisters. In came the servant of the prince, who explained that he had orders to try this little slipper on every maiden in the kingdom. Well, one of the stepsisters said, oh, me, let me try it." "Very well," said the servant. He held out the shoe. That stepsister squeezed and squeezed, but the shoe didn't fit. The other sister said, "Oh, let me have a turn." "Very well," said the servant. He held out the shoe. That sister squeezed and squeezed, but the shoe didn't fit. The servant was just about to leave when he noticed Cinderella sitting in the corner, and he asked her to try the shoe. Now, of course, the stepsisters protested and said, "Oh, don't waste your time, it couldn't be her." But the servant explained that he had orders to try this shoe on every maiden in the kingdom, and he offered it to Cinderella. She tried the shoe, and do you know what? It was a perfect fit. The servant was delighted, hurried out the door, and back to the palace to tell the prince that he had found the girl who fit the shoe. The prince was thrilled and sent for her right away. When the two were reunited, they were married at once. Of course, they lived happily ever after, and that is the story of Cinderella.